Here is how I kitbashed some chessmen. I was doom scrolling Reddit one night and I came across this post by JH Miniatures. They are chessmen for a game called Turnip28. I was dreadfully inspired and felt the urge to try to make some for myself. JH Miniatures made a few chessmen videos on YouTube that are fantastic. I've added a link to them in the description. I'll make them with the games Turnip28 and Mordheim in mind. 'Cause word on the street is they've been secretly playing Mordheim in the basement of my local game store, Old Guard Games. And I want in. These chessmen will work for whatever game you want to get a little whimsical in. Also, it would be really cool having a little chess set on display, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while now. Here is the concept I made in Photoshop. And here's a cool drawing. Neat! I went to Thingiverse to get some free chess pieces for the bodies. I used these ones by Tim Edwards. Big thanks to Vae Victis for letting me use a few of their modular fantasy kits. They make a bunch of amazing fantasy models, which would be perfect for Turnip28, Mordheim, Frostgrave, and the like. Make sure to check them out with the link below. Look how cool these cultists are. This is a relatively easy kitbash to do. All I had to do was take some arms and legs and move them into place. The pieces needed scaling to fit right, and I ended up squishing the legs a little to make them shorter. I also used the elastic deform tool to make sure the arms looked semi-natural coming out of the chess pieces. I made sure to fully clip the hands into the wrists to avoid any resin traps that could cause issues later. You can definitely print the hands out separately, I just didn't want to have to try to remember which file I used and to scale them properly. I like the idea of the chessmen being a little worn out and chipped. I selected the chess pieces and used an add-on called one-click damage to damage them in, you guessed it, one click. You can adjust the sliders to change the damage. Very easy and makes a huge difference. The queens weren't really reading as queens. It's sort of hard to make a chess piece look like a lady. So I gave both queens the old classic Wilma Flintstone pearl necklace. I imported a sphere, turned on snapping, snap to face, and then snap with median. Then you can copy, drag until you have a necklace. Much better. The hardest part of the kitbash was figuring out what to equip everyone with. I know in Turnip28 you cannot mix loadouts in a squad, but for the pawns, which will be fodder, I split them into two groups, the close range and the long range, specifically black powder, so it wouldn't look too weird on display. I thought that was a more satisfying way to do it. This way, I could also have whatever I need for games like Mordheim. If I ever want to expand the Turnip28 army, I'll just make another batch of chessmen. I stuck to the Turnip28 rules for the kings and queens though. They all got swords and pistols. I printed them all out in my new fancy winterproof setup and segregated them into black and white pieces. I tried to make sure each side had a good variation of equipment. The bases are just square bases I made in Blender. I want to paint the chessmen and the bases separately, so I made these little temporary bases that have a magnet hole in them, and a painting handle to go with it. I've added it to my model and bits box for my patrons if you want to use them. They make it super easy to switch between models when painting and airbrushing. I added a link to the magnets I use, which are 6mm by 2mm. I recommend using the 5x2 though, since the fit is kind of tight if you got any warping during printing. But either will work and just depends on how good your printer is. The paint job for these guys is super easy, so let's get right to it. Thank you to Monument Hobbies for sending me a pack of some of their airbrush primers. I painted the Chessmen in 2 batches, all of the black pieces from start to finish, then all the white pieces to avoid having to clean and change brushes and paints. I first primed all the black pieces. They all started with a base coat of Pro Acryl Black. Then I sprayed up from below with a red ink. I then zenithal highlighted with neutral gray. The white pieces were first primed with Pro Acryl Neutral Gray, and then sprayed up from below with a red ink. Lastly, I zenithal highlighted with white primer. These primers are really great, and if you want some for yourself, you can use the link in the description and code iPaintSmallThings for money off your order from Monument Hobbies. It's kind of fun having 90% of the painting done after priming. The black pieces were dry brushed with dark warm gray, and the white pieces were dry brushed with titanium white. While the painting handle magnets are strong, you can still knock the piece off the painting handle when dry brushing. Just careful. Both of the Queen's pearls got highlighted to make them stand out a bit more. I also painted the shields with a checkerboard pattern. The white pieces had the reverse checkerboard pattern to make them a little different. I added scratches and holes into the shields with black and white. I forgot how much I enjoyed weathering shields, and it's a fantastic way to practice making scratches. Lastly, I sprayed all the pieces with 2 layers of gloss varnish to match the sheen on classic chess pieces. The bases were super simple too. I lined a bunch up and painted them with alternating white and black Monument Hobbies spray paint to make it look like a chessboard. I painted all the rims with Huge Minis Antimatter Black and then varnished with a matte varnish. I took the Chessmen off their temporary bases and glued them onto their permanent bases. I used too much super glue on some of the temporary bases, and some of their toes snapped off. Use this as a warning to only use a tiny drop of super glue on one of their feet to secure resin minis onto temporary bases. I was able to fix the worst amputation with green stuff though, which I'm pretty proud of. I then took a texture paste from Huge Miniatures, link below, and with a texture tool, added a few dirt patches. Then added a few grass tufts and redwood scatter, again from Huge Minis to finish it off. I left a few of the white bases tuftless to add a little variety. Use the link below if you want some texture paste or basing accoutrement for yourself. I highly recommend them, and I really like how the overgrown and mini tufts look different than your classic grass tuft shape. And just like that, the Chessmen are done. The world needs a little more whimsy, and boy did we get whimsical up in here. Thanks again to Vae Victis for letting me use their modular files. They were high quality and a joy to work with. Also, don't forget to check out JH Miniatures, who is the inspiration for this whole thing. If you liked the video and want to support me further, please consider joining my Patreon. It greatly helps motivate me to continue making these videos. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you. Alright, bye-bye.